Patricia Monserrate believed, as a missionary and minister's wife, that she had to be perfect in every way. This included keeping the secret of her abuse. One night, as her two small daughters slept in their beds, she found herself alone in a closed closet, sitting on the floor, weeping and screaming at God, "I can't go on. I want to die."
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Patricia Monserrate is a native of California who loves to travel. She is a licensed evangelist and missionary, ministering to hurting single women, wives, couples, and young people searching for answers. Her passion for those less fortunate has been the driving force to promote growth in the community and in women. Patricia takes pride in providing the best personal, professional, and spiritual solutions to those who are looking for a better way of living. Recognized for extraordinary commitment to volunteering, she also received the President's Volunteer Award 4 straight years. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you on this morning.
And I'm happy to have you. It's going to be very interesting, and I know it's going to be inspiring for the audience. So let us begin with your story. As I mentioned up in the top of the show, the dilemma that you were in, the pain you were in. How did this all come about? Tell us your story.
Well, sadly enough, I'm not sure if the audience remember, but years ago, way back in the 50s, every family had like an uncle or an aunt that wasn't really related, but they have known the family for many years. And so, of course, in my family, I had an uncle that wasn't really my uncle, but I called him my uncle. And it happened one day, I'll never forget. I was about 5 years old, five and a half, almost six. I can even remember the dress I had on, and that's strange because I would be 71 this year, and I can still see it just as clear as it happened yesterday. I was at my with my mother. I was with at my aunt's house, and there was a lot of family and friends there, and they were barbecuing and having fun because my real uncle was a fisherman and he had a boat. So as a little girl, I was very intrigued of my aunt's beautiful china case in her dining room, and she had all these cute little trinkets that I just wanted to just touch and just see how they look. And I remember the uncle that's really not my uncle. He came in, and I remember he says, "Come and sit on my lap." And I didn't think nothing of it.
Hmm.
I'm a little kid. I'm only what,
Right.
five and a half, six, and I trusted him, and I believed, that he just wanted me to sit on his lap. Well, sitting on his lap, he began to do things that, honestly, Carol, I didn't quite understand. You have to remember that back in the day,
Hmm.
parents didn't tell their kids about certain things like that. That was hush hush. So I really didn't understand what he was doing. but I felt that it was wrong, but I didn't know how to uh,
Right.
tell
Right.
him to stop or whatever. And I remember that someone was coming from the kitchen because it was like the kitchen, the dining room, and then the living room. And someone was coming from the kitchen, and he abruptly pulled up my panties and set me down, took me off his lap. And I didn't really understand what had happened to me, what was going on. Um, and he looked at me and he said, if you tell anybody, um, I will deny it and it would just be you, and they would think that you are the one. So, of course,
Oh.
I never said anything. But it didn't just stop there, Carol. It's amazing how when something that drastic happens to you, you have a tendency to turn within yourself, and you don't know how to fight for yourself, or are you afraid? I put it to you that way. Um, and it happened once again. This time I was a little bit older. I was like maybe 11 or 12, and I was in my mother's best friend's daughter's wedding, and we decided to go to their house to spend the night before the wedding, since I was in the wedding. And of course, they didn't have enough room, so I was sleeping on the couch. Well, in the middle of the night, while everybody was asleep, the bride's brother, he was about 17, of course, came into the living room where I was sleeping. And I just pretended that I was asleep, but I was full awake of what was going on. And it was the same thing, exactly like what the uncle did when I was about 5.5. And it happened several more times when I got older. And I couldn't tell anyone at all. I was so afraid. I met the Lord when I was only 8, and I received the baptism of the Holy Ghost when I was 9. But even though the other incidents happened after that, I still didn't know how to process it. And I think a lot of women and even men that go through this kind of abuse, they don't know how to process it. And
Hmm.
I didn't know. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell my family. I just kept living. I just kept going on like everything was okay. But when I got in my early 20s, I began to see a change in me that I didn't trust much. Um, it even affected my
Hmm.
faith. It even affected my faith with God, Carol. You know how when you pray, um, I know that I used to do this. I will always have plan A, plan B, C, and D, and go on if God didn't answer my prayer. And that I began to see that there was a change, that everything that happened to me had really molded me.
Hmm.
And even when the Lord sent my husband, that's another story. Uh, how we met, and when we got married, we met in April and was married in September. I do not advise that to anybody, okay? Uh, but you have to really know who you are in Christ and trust Him. And but our first years, I say maybe the first 2 or 3 years, it was difficult, even though he didn't know it, but it was difficult for him, for me, to really enjoy his touches, he
Right.
never guessed it. He just thought, well, she was a church girl, she was properly grown, brought up in church when she was young, and and he was a minister, so he didn't see anything wrong about it until the book came out uh
Oh,
last year.
really?
Yes, as a matter of fact, my family was shocked because I never told my siblings. They wanted me to tell them, well, who did it? Who did? And I'm said, it's over and done with. Some of them are has passed on. It's not. But I felt that I always had this desire to please, to be perfect.
Right.
I felt like I had to be perfect because of what happened to me, and that is one of the drawbacks of when you don't really share what is going on in your life, then you compensate it by trying to be perfect. And that's where I really realized that I really needed help. And my only help could be from learning how to pray, like you said, um, seeking God. That night when I was in the closet, um, I I didn't I felt like God had just deserted me and just left me because being kids, there was a expectation that I felt people were looking from me to be the perfect wife, to dress right, to talk right, uh, to speak right, uh, to always be home. And it was just so overwhelming that I knew that night when I was in that closet screaming at God and telling him I did not want to live anymore. That was the turning point for me. I say I was about in my early 30s at the time when that happened. And
Well, I
it
have a
was,
quote from you here that says, "It was impossible at times to live without confusion and pain. Its ugly marks of guilt and shame left you, uncertain of your identity or where you belonged." Now, how does that statement relate to what you are sharing? What was the depth of the shame and the guilt? Where was it coming from? Why did it affect you so much? Was it from the past? Just
it
expound
was,
on that a little bit more.
yes, it was from the past. I felt that everything, all the sexual abuse that happened to me was my fault because I never said a word. Everything that each time that I was um, touched inappropriately, they were all supposed to be friends of the family. And I felt that if I would have said something, then it would have stopped. Um, and that's where the guilt came from because I felt like I could have done something. I should have done something.
Okay.
I should have spoke up. And I didn't really know who I was um, for a long time. A long time. I just didn't know. Um, I remember one incident. I was in high school, and the friend was spending a night like always, and always comes creeping in my room. And it's not just that, but I felt like I could have stopped it if I would have just spoke up, but I was too
Mm,
afraid.
right.
And I see that a lot when I meet other women who have been through something similar to what I've been through or even been through it. They feel the same way. They feel guilty because they said, I should have spoke up. But I realized, and it took a long time, Carol, that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my problem. They the one that had the problem.
Right.
So I find myself sometimes um looking back and seeing you have a tendency to put it in the back of your mind and just try not to think about it, and you feel like it never really happened, but then something triggers it and you realize it happened. It happened.
I have
So
another.
that's
Oh,
why.
sorry, go ahead.
Uh-huh. No, go ahead.
I have another quote from you that I'd like you to expound on a little bit more, and that is this: a deep rooted secret carries a darkness that affects our physical and mental health. It brings brokenness, sadness, and hopelessness. To overcome the guilt and the shame, we need to forgive ourselves to finally find freedom.
That is so true. It's amazing how when I'm just listening to what I wrote, I have always been sickly, Carol, always, ever since I was a little child. I even almost died from pneumonia when I was about 7, and it's the dark secret that I have kept for so many years, up until last year when it really came out. Um, I've always been sick. I've always suffered with every time I would feel like something was wrong with my stomach, or I was always weak. I would go to the doctors and they would say, "There's nothing wrong with you." Or they would say, "Yes, something is, but it's all stress. And you need to uh, give your stress, just release stress." And it really affected me. That's why I tell people secrets can really destroy you, physically and mentally. There are times where sometimes I found myself sitting and just crying for no apparent reason, not
Hmm.
realizing that it's my heart that was hurting. And it took me, I say, many, many years to really forgive myself. Um, because if I
Hmm.
hadn't forgiven myself, I wouldn't have been able to write the book, Carol.
Of
Um,
course, of course.
that's how long it's been. So if the book just came out last year, and I'm I'm past 65 and moving on, that lets you know that there was a lot of guilt, and I tried to not feel that way anymore. Um, I asked my husband to forgive me for keeping that secret. I asked my family for forgiveness, and I even asked God to forgive me as well, because I should have trusted Him when I became to really know God. You have to understand that I've traveled a lot on the mission field, and even while I was working for God, there was still that little dark secret that I held, and I was encouraging women and secretly taking what I'm giving them to apply it to my life.
Hmm.
So that's how a dark secret can really, even though you think a dark secret may stop you from really doing things, no, it won't, but it does hinder you from really being free.
So, how do you get rid of that dark
And I just,
secret?
yes, you have to let it go. And that's the hard part. There there are steps that you have to really do. First of all, you have to acknowledge you're not at fault. It wasn't your fault. Secondly, you have to realize you're not to blame. You didn't want this to happen. It just happened. And then realize that there is a God that loves you unconditional. That no matter what happens in your life, He loves you and He cares for you. And even when you were going through that, Carol, He was
Hmm.
there with
That's
you,
right.
seeing it, helping you. And you have to come to that realization that, yes, I can be the person that God intended me to be. And I get choked up when I talk about God's love because no one loves you like He does. with he has you don't have to prove to him who you are because he knows who you are because he created you.
That's right.
So it's I sometimes I get emotionally, and I want your audience to know that that's because I'm grateful for coming out of the darkness into the light of God's unconditional love.
Well, also, your emotion is a result of your passion, and it's obviously noticeable that you want to help others. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your book and how it can help the audience. We'll be right back.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another: gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
We're continuing our interview today with Patricia Monserrate, and she is sharing something that affects many, not just women, but can also affect men, and secrets that they may carry from childhood abuse all the way through their adult life. And Patricia was able to meet that monster and get rid of that monster and learn how to live a full life without that guilt and shame. And now we're going to talk about her book, which is entitled Blueprints of Shades, that was birthed out of that secret that she kept for 40 years. So Patricia, share with us about your book.
Thank you, Carol. I the book came about when I was diagnosed with complex seizures in 2018. And so that curtailed all of my traveling, all of my volunteer work. And I told the Lord that I wanted to do something that will still enable me to minister to women and to help them. And one night, I never forget it. It was just heavy on my heart to write a book. And you must understand, I've never written a book in my life. But I do remember my two daughters kept telling me, Mom, you have done so much. You've been so many places. You need to write a book. And it was really heavy on my heart um, to write a book. And I really didn't know what the book was going to be about, honestly, until the title just came to me. And the title of Blueprints of Shades. And it showed me that everyone has a blueprint of their life,
Hmm.
but each blueprint has different shades. Some are really black and
Oh,
dark,
interesting.
some are light, some are dim, but we all have a shade of our blueprints of life. And he said, if you really want to be free, write the book about what you've been going through. And that's how this book came about. The main character, her name is Callie. And she started out to be a very sweet, loving person who enjoyed life. But in college, she went to an innocent party and she found herself in the bushes like a little rag doll. Um, And it changed her dramatically from the free, loving, sweet spirit person to a cold hearted person. And in my book, I show how that incident really changed who she was. But yet, in the book, I let her meet three different people that knew God's unconditional love. And through her associating with the three people, she begins to see that there's something in them that she doesn't have. And she realized that her parents, since she'd been away at college, she comes back and her parents are different. They're now singing songs of God and his love. And she's like, what has happened? Um, but it shows that even though you go through a lot of heartaches and pains, that you can overcome them through God's unconditional love and true friends. Now, of course, the book will have its moments. There is a bad guy in the book. His name is Oliver. Uh, you have to understand that Callie is a beautiful woman on the outside. She has these beautiful eyes and this long hair, and she looks like a goddess. And that's how I wanted her to picture that on the inside, she's gorgeous. But on the inside, she has that dark secret that has made her cold and unyielding. And I was very surprised that once I wrote the book and I sent it to a publisher, they were interested in publishing it, and I was really surprised. My goal for the book, though, Carol, is really to reach out to women who are going through something, who has a dark secret, who doesn't know where to turn to, or who to talk to, or what to do. I wanted the book to be a map, as it says, blueprints of shades. I want them to see the blueprint of their life and see it if it mirrors in the book. And the book would show them this is how you can get free and delivered and be able to forgive yourselves. So the book was a deliverance for me as well, because as I was writing it, many of those pages has a lot of tears on them. Some of it was very hard to write, uh, because some of the descriptions of what happened to her, um, when she was kidnapped, and a lot of things that she experienced. I myself, I was writing from personal experience. So it's really a book about showing you how to overcome the pain and the heartache and shame of your guilt and your pain, and let you become into a world of light and understanding that God is there no matter what. My first book, but it's to my heart because it really deals with what I went through.
Who should buy it?
I think anyone should buy it. Every and anyone. Young, middle age, old. It's a good reading, and it encourages you in a sense where it lets you know that yes, we do go through these terrible things, but there is a way out. And I just talked to a friend on yesterday, and she lives in a senior retirement home. And so she bought my book, and she said that one of her neighbors wanted to read it. So she called me yesterday and she says, your book is really getting really great raves at the senior citizens home.
Oh,
And I said, well, that's great. She says that they really enjoyed uh, the book about Callie and her love interest, which is an Italian guy. His name is Sergio. And he he knows of God, and so he helps her to really come to the light that there is a God that loves her no matter what. So I'm very happy with it, and I really did it to I didn't write it to just to say I'm writing a book, but I wanted to be a ministry tool so that it can help people, men or women. Now I know that some men may not read a romance novel, but his wife or his girlfriend may, or even his
Right,
mother,
right.
and they can tell him about what the book is about.
And are you working on
So I'm
anything new?
yes, I am, and I am so excited. The book actually started out as just one book. I was just going to write the second book, um, but it as I began to get all the characters to come to life, I realized that the other three characters um, has a book of their own, and so it's about four best friends for life, and these are four women who are very intelligent, educated, and who loves the Lord. But they find themselves in situations where their dilemma is their faith in God will be tested to the to the limit, and some of them will find themselves in situations that they never thought that they would be. Like the second, like one of the books would be one of the best friends. She innocently becomes a mistress without even knowing. And the other young girl, young lady, she finds herself with someone that she shouldn't be with, but she was. And she comes home one day and everything in her apartment is gone. There's nothing left but the bubble gum wrap that he
Oh,
left
my
on the
word.
floor. He even took the phone. Um, and then the one that I'm writing with now, she finds herself in a world of power, money, and social status, and it's gonna really test her faith in God because she's gonna have to choose between God or the man that she let herself fall in love with. And the fourth friend, in this book, her husband is killed in this book. But at the end, she's the last one. All of the girls, it's like a restoration for all of them in the last book. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in print. Um, the title of it right now is "The Seduction of a Butterfly," and this book
Hmm.
is subtitle "Forgiveness." And then the next one would be "Deceitful." We would deal with deceit, and then the next book we would deal with lying, and then the last book would be restoration. So it's kind of like it's a four book, and all these women go through all these things, and it's going to test their faith. So I want the audience to. I'm not going to tell you if they keep the faith or not.
The mystery.
That's the mystery, and of course I'm going to have a lot of drama. Uh, yes, so I'm really excited about it, Carol.
And when do you expect
Very
these to come
excited.
out?
I'm hoping we are shooting for the first book, Forgiveness. I'm shooting to try to get it to my publisher by September. So we're hoping by the 1st of January, the first book will be out. But in the meantime, I will be writing the second and third one just as fast. So we're hoping to at least have both books out, at least one and two, next year, the beginning of next year.
Well, that
That's my
definitely is something to look forward to. And who
yeah,
doesn't love a good romance story, let alone one that's got intrigue and a
yes,
message? Because obviously you have a message and you're going to address things that women will be able to relate to. And those secrets that hopefully, I'm sure that's your desire, will bring help women to come forward and to share their secret and to be set free from the pain of that past and the guilt and the shame. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. You're
So
welcome. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you being on Never Ever Give Up Hope today. And your story, as I mentioned already, definitely will resonate with a huge audience. Is there anything in closing, a sentence or two, that you would like to share with the audience?
I want to let the audience know that there is a scripture that I really love. Um, it's in 2 Kings 20:5, and it says, I've heard thy prayer, and I have seen your tears for help. And I want your audience to know that God will bring you out of whatever you're going through. Because if you just pray to Him, He hears your prayers, and He has seen your tears, and all the help you need, it's there. All you need to do is just trust Him and believe in Him and look up, and you will see Him there.
Beautiful summary and beautiful words of encouragement. So again, we thank you for Patricia for being on Never Ever Ever Give Up Hope. And we look forward to that book series. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me on this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.